if you're like most people, you either have or you will have an identity crisis at some point in your life. Many people have more than one, and it can be really traumatic for some people, but it's avoidable. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what it is, where it comes from, and how you can transition through it smoothly as you up-level your identity for the next chapter of your life. Typically, these come up when you're transitioning, so that's a clue. But your identity is based in your subconscious, so we don't always recognize all of the components that go into it. It's created by your beliefs, which quite often are subconscious. You have subconscious beliefs that you didn't intentionally create, but they will impact your identity and how you see yourself or limit yourself. And your identity is also influenced by your intentions. So this is a really powerful tool to remember. When you set an intention, it is the most powerful form of thought, and it just means you have decided you are moving forward in a particular manner, and you do it. Your subconscious will recognize an intention, and it will help form your identity. As I mentioned, often there are beliefs in our subconscious that impact our identity that we don't recognize. A lot of your beliefs were formed before the age of 8 and may not make any sense to the adult mind. You could have underlying subconscious beliefs that have to do with, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I could never do that new thing because I'm not good enough for some reason. Something happened in childhood or a series of things that you interpreted in a particular way that may or may not make any sense. It doesn't have to. Children before the age of 8 do not have reasoning. So their interpretations are often delusional. And once you recognize those stories running your programs, your beliefs, you can change them. You can choose new stories about how worthy and capable you actually are of doing that thing you're thinking about. So we talk about an identity crisis coming up when you have an idea of doing something new, going into a new area, role, position, chapter in your life, and you may fall into an identity crisis because you've identified yourself usually in a particular role. It could be a personal role of a spouse or a child or a parent. You could identify yourself as a friend, a partner, a professional with a certain title. None of those things are actually your identity. Again, your identity is formed by your beliefs and your intentions, and it will impact not just how you're showing up right now, but how you're able to show up and what you're able to do in the future. If you come up with a big dream or goal or a pivot you want to make in your life, you may go through an identity crisis because you've never done that thing before. So your subconscious doesn't see you as someone who's capable of doing it. That's an identity crisis. The way to move through this is to recognize that there are stories in your subconscious that don't make any sense. And if you feel resistance or fear coming up, look at it. What could be causing that? Do you feel capable, worthy, able to do something new and different? If you have a dream of being a TEDx speaker, let's say, if you've never done any public speaking, you more than likely will be going through an identity crisis because your subconscious can't see you doing it. The trick there is to ease yourself into it. You could do some visualizations to see yourself on that stage, but you could also get some practice in smaller venues or getting up in a small Toastmasters club to give a very short speech. The more steps, little baby steps you take toward that bigger goal, your subconscious will start to relax and see you as able to create that goal of being that TEDx speaker. But until you start taking action, you are going to remain in crisis. And the more you think about it without taking action, the more resistant you're going to be to doing it, because your subconscious is going to be in a state of terror about the fact that that's not you. You can't do that. Your identity does not align with that new goal or that new thing you're thinking about. Another way that an identity crisis will come up often is when you're transitioning in life to a new phase. Let's say you're approaching an age where society tells you it's about time to retire, or maybe your children who've been a big part of your life have left home, or they're getting ready to, and you go into this crisis because when you see yourself moving out of those old roles, you don't know who you are because you've identified yourself in that old role. You've aligned that with your identity, but it's not really who you are. So one way I recommend that people get through this type of a crisis is by looking at the skills you've developed rather than your title and the roles you've filled. What skills have you built over time from those roles? Because the longer we live, the more skills we develop, but we often don't recognize the skills because it was tied into a role that we had. When you move into a new role, whatever that is, and the world is your oyster, you get to decide what that is. You want to be able to identify skills that you already have that will help smooth the transition into that new role. Again, it doesn't have to create a crisis in your mind, in your subconscious, if you recognize that that role is not who you are. You can do many different things and you have many, many different skills. Once you recognize that, yes, you may go through some flailing around figuring out what you want to do next. Recognize that that role does not define you. Roles can come and go, and the way you were meant to serve others will change over the course of your lifetime. And your identity should evolve as you do. The crisis only comes up when you feel tugged to do something that in your subconscious you question if you really can do. Work on your self-love and your self-esteem and worth, and you'll realize all you have to do is work on the skills. There's no reason you can't do that thing. Be sure to hit subscribe while you're here and check out our YouTube channel because I have a number of other videos that can help you with this.